Hey guys, welcome to Bookish Islander. My name is Juan and today I'm here to do my reading wrap-up for the month of August 2019. Last month I read books in English, I read books in Spanish, in Portuguese and even a couple in French. However, if you only speak English or if you can only read in English, do not worry because most of the books that I'm gonna talk about here are also available in English translation. Having said that, I'm gonna begin with the books that I read in English to make things easier. And the first of those books is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is a critical darling. It was, apart from winning the Pulitzer Prize, it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and it's also a BookTube darling. I watched a lot of videos where people heaped praise on this book before I decided to read it. And the reason why it took me so long to pick it up was because I struggled with the idea about a book about trees. I just couldn't see how I would connect with this book. Finally, however, I decided to read it. And let me tell you what I thought about it. I loved the first part of this book. I was so into it. I was so into the style in which it's written. I was so into the characters. I was so into everything. And then at some point, and I don't remember exactly where, I lost all interest. I even thought about bailing out on this book, but I didn't. I soldiered on and I finished it, but I was left underwhelmed. The second book that I read in English last month was a completely different story. It was a lot more enjoyable. And I'm talking about Stoner by John Williams. This is a beloved book. A lot of people love this book. So I know I'm a little bit late to the party, and that's my only regret, really, you know. This is such a simple story told in such a simple, matter-of-fact way, and yet it's one of the most enjoyable books that I've read in recent years. I will reread it again, I'm sure. I love it. I couldn't recommend this book any more highly. And then I also read a book that I enjoyed a lot, but it's very, very different. And I'm talking about Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. Now this book has become a gay cult classic. Some people even hail it as the gay Great Gatsby. And if you want to know what I think about those ideas and about this book, you should watch out because I've recently shot a review, but I got my publishing schedule a bit mixed up. So the video is not up yet, but it will be up soon. So watch out if you want to hear more on my opinions about Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. So those are the books that I read originally in English. So let's move on now to the books I read in Spanish. And the first of those is The City and the Dogs by Mario Vargas Llosa. I have it here. I'm not sure if you can see the cover. It's very dark. So this is Mario Vargas Llosa's first novel, and it's a naturalistic approach to being brought up in a military academy. And that's something that actually happened to Mario Vargas Llosa when he was a child in Lima, Peru, in his native Peru. This book is brutal. Like I said, it's naturalistic, so you can expect a lot of violence and so on. But I think it's such a remarkable first novel, and I think it's also an important book in Latin American history. If you want to know more about my thoughts on La Ciudad y los Perros and you speak Spanish, there is a video review that I put out recently, so be sure to check it out. Okay, next up is Patria by Fernando Aramburu from the Basque Country. This is a bestseller in Spain. It has been a bestseller for a couple of years. It's a political novel that takes place during the final years of terrorist activity by the ETA. It's set in a fictional Basque town, and it's a book that I owned for a couple of years. Somebody lent it to me. I have a physical copy, but I've lent it out. But this is a cover anyway, the best known cover for it. Yeah, I had it for a couple of years, but I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. I just didn't want to get into the whole politics of it. I read all the reviews, however, so I knew what to expect, and I was right. I didn't expect the book to be so enjoyable though, so even though I take issues with some of the stuff in the book, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's so popular for two main reasons. Number one, the two main reasons really boil down to the fact that it's very easy to read. So the reason number one, it's written in flowing prose in colloquial Spanish, so I think that will make it also very easy to translate and very easy to read in other languages. By the way, I don't think the book has been translated into English yet, but it has been translated into other languages. And because it's such a big bestseller in Spain, you know, I'm pretty sure that it will be translated into other languages at some point. The second reason why I think this book is so popular is that it confirms the bias of mainstream opinion in Spain. And I think that's the problem. I think that's what I take issue with. I think this is a wasted opportunity to tell a more interesting story about a rather complex socio-political reality. But it's an enjoyable read. And if you can read in Spanish, read it, because it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's engaging. But I think that's all it is really, and it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. Now, crossing the border from Spain to Portugal, I read Gente Feliz com Lágrimas in Portuguese. The literal translation of the title would be Happy People with Tears. I have no idea if this book has been translated into English, but it's a very highly acclaimed book in Portugal. It's written by Juan and it takes place in the Azores mainly, but there are some scenes also in Vancouver, British Columbia, and in Lisbon. If you speak Portuguese, I've made a review of this book. It's not out yet because, once again, I messed up with my scheduling this month, but it will be out soon. I think it will probably be, if memory serves, I think it will be up and running this Tuesday. And the second book that I read in Portuguese, which I talked about in my first Friday Reads, is Autobiografia by José Luís Peixoto. I talked about this book in Friday Reads, so I'm not gonna say much about it. I enjoyed it, but the best thing about it is that it really made me want to read more José Saramago, because this book is somehow an homage to Saramago. So it's not surprising that the next book and the final book that I read in Portuguese in August was by Saramago himself. I read The Stone Raft, which in Portuguese is A Jangada de Pedra. I read this in Portuguese, but again, like all Saramago's books, it's translated in English and into other languages. I love this book, and if you like Saramago, watch out. And keep up with my Friday Reads, because I'm going to be reading a lot more by this author. I'm going to be rereading my favorite novels by him and also reading ones that I haven't gotten to yet. And that concludes my books in Portuguese. So the next couple of books that I read were in French. I read the 19th century novella Boule de Suif by Guy de Maupassant. I love this book. This is a heck of a book. And I talked about this in the N is for Novella tag created by Sean the Book Maniac. So if you want to hear more about my opinions, go and check out that tag, which is a great tag anyway, because I used Boule de Suif as, to answer one of the prompts, and I talk about it and how I feel about it there. But it's an amazing book. All I will say right now about this book is go read it as soon as you can. And then finally, I read another French book, more recent one. I read The Order of the Day. Here there's the Spanish language translation and edition, which I own, but I did read it in French as an ebook. This novel is by the French writer Éric Bouillard. And yeah, it comes out as a novel and it won the Prix Goncourt for Best Novel in France, but it's so short that it's at best a novella. And also it feels more like an essay when you read it, so I was confused about it generically. I think it can spark some interesting discussions about literary genres. I liked it, I enjoyed reading it, but I didn't feel it told me anything that I didn't already know about World War II. Neither did it make me think about World War II in a different way, which I think was the author's intention. But yeah, it didn't quite work, but it's an enjoyable read. So yeah, so those are the books that I read in August. What did you read? Are you interested in any of these books? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's talk about it. I hope to see you again very soon. I hope you have a great month of September. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.